Hi friends, welcome to lesson 23, concept of social development and its theories. Development has multiple dimensions and indicators. Social development is that dimension of development where the focus is on the promotion of a sustainable society that is worthy of human dignity. The goal is empowering marginalized communities, women and men to undertake their own development to improve their social and economic position and to acquire their rightful place in society. Amartya Sen, Nobel laureate in economics, defines social development is equality of social opportunities. Social development is the process of planned institutional change to bring about better adjustment between human needs and aspirations on one hand and social policies and programs on the other. Social development is also being termed as social sustainability and inclusion. The significant objectives of this lesson are: after completion of this lesson, you will be able to understand the concept and features of social development. You will be able to comprehend theories of development. To talk about social development, Thodaro and Smith define social development as the process of improving the quality of all human lives. They have given three characteristics of development. Firstly, raising people's living levels, that is income and consumption, levels of food, medical services, education through relevant growth processes. Secondly, they talk about creating conditions conducive to growth of people's self-esteem through the establishment of social, political and economic systems and institutions which promote human dignity and respect. Thirdly, they talk about increasing people's freedom to choose by enlarging the range of their choice variables, for example, varieties of goods and services. There are several definitions and perspectives of social development. Manohar Pawar, in his book Social and Community Development Practice, published in 2014, has categorized almost all of the definitions of recognized scholars of social development in three categories based on their approach, such as: firstly, definitions that focus on systematic planning and thinking and economic development. Secondly, definitions that focus on structural change. And thirdly, definitions that focus on realizing the human potential, needs and quality of life. The concept of development has evolved over the past 2 centuries. The main idea of economic development expanded from economic growth to poverty alleviation, sustainable development, human development, and therefore the Millennium Development Goals and Sustainable Development Goals also became important. These concepts are mainly focused on economic and infrastructural development, ignoring social development, which is very fundamental to the idea of development. In recent years, the development debates and literature have begun to emphasize that social development is an important dimension of development, and its importance was confirmed globally after introducing the Sustainable Development Goals. However, there is no unanimity with regard to the definition of social development. The recent works in social development have emphasized the need for a dynamic and more comprehensive way in developing social development model. Most of the existing social development frameworks are not compatible and sufficient to reflect the dynamics of social development. One of the current debates on social development is on a spectrum of material and non-material dimensions. According to 𝗬𝗎𝗪, social development is the human interactions and the complex phenomena that arise from the specific interactions like large number of groups and associations including family, neighborhood, associations, formal organizations, communities and even societies, which also give rise to social networks, values, cultures and institutions. Hence, social development framework should take into account every aspect of social development including material and non-material. The World Summit for Social Development held in March 1995 in Copenhagen with the heads of 117 countries was a critical phase which focused on the need to put people at the center of development. It pledged to make the conquest of poverty the goal of full employment and fostering of social integration overriding objectives of development. The 10 commitments of the summit are: eradicate absolute poverty by a target date to be set by each country, support full employment as a basic policy goal, promote social integration based on the enhancement and protection of all human rights, achieve equality and equity between women and men, accelerate the development of Africa and the least developed countries, ensure that structural adjustment programs include social development goals, increase resources allocated to social development, create an economic, political, social, cultural and legal environment that will enable people to achieve social development, attain universal and equitable access to education and primary health care, and strengthen cooperation for social development through the United Nations. Another significant milestone with regard to social development was Millennium Declaration in Geneva in June-July 2000. The summit convened by United Nations General Assembly reaffirms universal values of human rights, equality, mutual respect and shared responsibility. In the 2000 summit, world leaders committed to fight together against poverty and hunger, gender inequality, environmental degradation and HIV/AIDS while improving access to education, health care and clean water, all by 2015. These wide-ranging commitments are encompassed in the 8 Millennium Development Goals. These have been succeeded by the Sustainable Development Goals (SDGs) or Global Goals are a collection of 17 interlinked global goals designed to be the blueprint to achieve a better and more sustainable future for all. The SDGs were set up in 2015 by United Nations General Assembly and are intended to be achieved by 2030. These SDGs are indeed important components of social development. Let us now try to understand the features of social development. The significant features are promotion of social growth and betterment of human conditions with focus on dignity, equality, respect, mutual responsibility and cooperation. Economic development should become a means to achieve human development by fulfilling the basic needs of the individuals, and thus ultimate goal should be people-centric development. For maximizing development, economic and social policies should supplement each other. Sustainable development can be achieved only by ensuring social and distributive justice, attaining equity and equality for all by confirming access, opportunity and quality of life to all. Another feature is capability enhancement to be the center stage of development to facilitate social empowerment. Access to resources and ensuring rights of all the citizens, along with equitable distribution of societal resources like property, prestige, greater and better access to institutions like education, health, food security, greater enjoyment of freedom and dignity of the people. Another feature of social development ensures efficient stratification system and greater opportunity for social mobility. Today, the social development plans in India includes poverty alleviation, ensuring food security, expansion of education and health facilities, ending child labor and ensuring child rights, ending untouchability and bringing social equality at all platforms, fight against gender discrimination, protection and promotion of minorities, mainstreaming the excluded through inclusive development, population control through family planning, and increasing the nutritional standards among the people. Ecological protection and sustainable development is also an important component. When there is spread of education, there will be a greater awareness among the people. This will enhance their participation in the process of development. Community participation helps in fighting against poverty, inequality and marginalization. This also helps in ensuring human rights for all citizens, which is a significant element of social development. A committed government will make reduction of poverty, unemployment, inequality and social exclusion the priority areas of its development agenda and will gear efforts to achieve them in full length. When these social problems are addressed by the political will of the government and community participation, social development will definitely become a reality. The transformations in the attitude of the people and their practices, along with the change in the cultural values and traditions, will bring changes in the social institutions and promote social development. There are certain factors which retard social development. Some of them are illiteracy and ignorance, social cleavages based on caste, class, gender, ethnicity based differentiations, social exclusions, lack of community participation, socio-cultural conservatism. The removal of these barriers can promote social development in a country. Friends, let us now discuss some of the significant theories of development. Development has been explained by several experts in different ways, especially post 1990s with emergence and expansion of liberalization, privatization and globalization. LPG, the facets of development and causes of underdevelopment have received global explanations with entire world as a system. Whether it is dependency theory supported by 𝗧𝗦𝗔𝗧, Wallerstein and Frank, or Amartya Sen proposing freedom as development, all these explanations have some global interconnections. Thus, the theories of development offer diversified accounts and elucidations about development. Dependency theory attempts to explain the present underdeveloped state of many nations in world by examining the patterns of interactions among nations and by arguing that inequality among nations is an intrinsic part of those interactions. While modernization theory understood development and underdevelopment as a result from internal conditions that differ between economies, dependency theory understood development and underdevelopment as relational. It saw the world's nation as divided into core wealthy nations which dominate a periphery of poor nations whose main function in the system is to provide cheap labor and raw materials to the core. It held that the benefits of this system accrue almost entirely to the rich nations which become progressively richer and more developed, while the poor nations which continually have their surpluses drained away to the core do not advance. Dependency theorists held that for underdeveloped nations to develop, they must break their ties with the developed nations and pursue internal growth. One type of policy crafted from this insight was import substitution industrialization. Let us now further explore about dependency theory. Dependency can be defined as an explanation of the economic development of a state in terms of the external influences like political, economic and cultural on national development policies. Dependency theory asserts that most Latin American countries have obtained formal political independence during the 19th century, but have remained economically subordinate to external powers ever since. The lack of development of these countries is attributed to their integration in the capitalist world system and the resulting exploitation by colonial powers such as Spain, Portugal, Great Britain and the United States. Among the scholars who developed the original dependency concept were Teotonio dos Santos, Fernando Henrique Cardoso and Celso Furtado. The center-periphery theorists may be described as the result of the spatial broadening and theoretical deepening of the dependency perspective. The center-periphery theories do not limit their analysis to the countries of Latin America. Instead, they claim to be more general and applicable to the whole of the Third World. Center-periphery theories focus and emphasize the unequal and exploitative structural relationships that have developed between the different parts of the capitalist world system, that is the center and the periphery. These theories pay immense attention to the supposedly negative effects of relationship between the center and the periphery on the latter. Representatives of center-periphery theory are scholars like A.G. Frank, 𝗧𝗦𝗔𝗧, Johann Galtung and Giovanni Arrighi. 𝗧𝗦𝗔𝗧's theory focuses on unequal development, which has led to accumulation in the world capitalist system. His theory highlights the value and unequal exchange in the context of the world system, which is usually interpreted as the foundation of his accumulation theory, the theory of development of world capitalist system, and the theory of delinking, which speaks about the development strategy for the third world supported by Samir Amin. Amin explains that a series of economic distortions emerge relative to the development of rich countries during their own emergence into capitalism. These include bureaucratic overspending, excessively rapid urbanization, structural imbalances within the economy, reliance on external aid flows, and the redistribution of local incomes towards the comprador class from the world system. The peripheral countries should operate their economies on the basis of their own requirements and not that of the core countries. Capitalism does not serve the requirements of peripheral countries. The development of peripheral countries requires a socialist political order. Delinking is thus the transition from capitalism to socialism. In A.G. Frank's theory, the position of individual states and groups within the states is analyzed in the context of the capitalist world system. Exploitation, which stands apart from but is closely linked to dependence, is a central concept in Frank's theory of the development of the capitalist world system. Frank uses the concept of exploitation to indicate that, in his view, the part of the surplus produced by the satellite economies is expropriated by the metropolitan countries, which use it to stimulate their own development. Emanuel Wallerstein, in his book The Modern World System, Capitalist Agriculture and Origins of the European World Economy in 16th Century, published in 1976, develops a theoretical framework to understand and analyze the historical changes involved in the rise of the modern world. The modern world system, essentially capitalist in nature, followed the crisis of the feudal system and helps explain the rise of Western Europe to the world supremacy between 1450 and 1670. According to Wallerstein, his theory presents a comprehensive understanding of the external and internal manifestations of the modernization process during this period and makes analytical comparisons between the different parts of the world. World system analysis is another significant variant of the dependency theory, which is inextricably linked with the work of Emanuel Wallerstein. Wallerstein's work focuses on what he has termed the modern world system. His analysis is basically analytical and historical. He tries to determine the causes of the rise of the capitalist world economy during the 16th century and of its subsequent spread across the world. His analysis of the world system is not in terms of two categories, center and periphery. Instead, Wallerstein distinguishes three parts, adding the so-called semi-periphery to the other two categories of core and periphery. It has been embraced by development theorists and practitioners owing to its emphasis on development and unequal opportunities across the nations. In fact, his theory emphasizes so much of interdependence of nations that it makes the world system theory both a political and an intellectual endeavor. Apart from these theories, Gandhian theory of development also offers interesting explanation. Gandhiji was deeply influenced by Ruskin's book Unto This Last, and many thinkers on Gandhiji have opined that Ruskin was the father of Gandhian economic thought. Gandhiji summarized the teachings of Unto This Last under three basic truths. Firstly, the good of the individual is contained in the good of all. Thus, Gandhiji gave the concept of 𝗧𝗦𝗔𝗧. Secondly, each person has the right to earn livelihood from his work, and there is dignity of labor, which means that there is nothing called high and low labor. Thirdly, the life of the tiller of the soil and the handicraftsman is the life worth living, which implies village industries and Swadeshi. Gandhiji was also inspired by the thought of American activist and writer Henry David Thoreau and above all the Russian writer Leo Tolstoy. Gandhiji focused on non-violence, simplicity of needs, and the focus was on the means and techniques used to achieve the ends, the fundamental requirement for a sharing of wealth among all people and a commitment to the greatest possible autonomy of action and focus on grassroots self-organization of decentralized and democratic communities. Gandhian economic and development goals are not materialistic or individualistic but ethico, spiritual and community oriented. It is clear that this approach is thoroughly consistent with Gandhiji's vision of a new humanity. Gandhiji rejected that economism which believed in the creation of a paradise of material plenty in raising the standard of living understood as maximizing consumption and optimizing the pattern of production. According to Gandhiji, 𝗧𝗦𝗔𝗧 implied well-being of all and the term to describe social and economic justice. His understanding of path to 𝗧𝗦𝗔𝗧 was through a village economy which maximized the powers of the traditional Indian handicrafts and only employed modern machines that allowed for a production by the masses rather than mass production. Gandhiji strongly proposed that the method of production must be based as much as possible on locally available resources. Although this is an extremely important economic principle, it was almost consistently ignored or neglected over the entire period of Indian planning. Gandhiji's idea of development has given tremendous significance to community orientation with emphasis on village community. Gandhiji characterized the ideal society of his dream, Gram Swaraj. Gandhiji advocated a new method that would substitute both capitalist and socialist form of ownership, which he calls as trusteeship. A group of economists, after discussing with his ideas on trusteeship as a revolutionary method of ownership and management, Gandhian model emphasized the rapid development of agriculture and small industries. Village and small industries were emphasized from the point of view of production as well as employment. This model necessitated these changes in the pattern of planning. Employment oriented planning to replace production oriented planning. Emphasis on development of agriculture as a means of enlarging employment. Emphasis on small industries as against large industries. there is need to incorporate the principles of Gandhian development in the contemporary planning process for sustainable and overall development. When we talk about human development as a perspective in development, it is an approach for Amartya Sen. It is the basic development idea which facilitates advancing the richness of human life rather than the richness of the economy in which human beings live, which is only part of it. This is the basic focus of human development approach. It was pioneered by Mahbub-ul-Haq and the first report came out in 1990. Amartya Sen pioneered the capabilities approach, that is to explain development, and philosopher Martha Nussbaum and a growing number of other scholars across the humanities and social sciences have significantly developed the capabilities approach. The capability approach signifies that freedom to achieve well-being is a matter of what people are able to do and to be, and thus the kind of life they are effectively able to lead. The capability approach is generally conceived as a flexible and multi-purpose framework rather than a precise theory of well-being. Amartya Sen, while firmly expressing that freedom should be the primary element of development. Another theory of development is modernization theory. Modernization theory collaborated development with modernity. For a country or area to be seen as a modern, it has to show an advancement in science and technology, has to be industrially developed, and has to move away from the traditional values which prioritize collectivism to individualism, and from hierarchy based on ascription, that is based on birth in a particular class or caste, to one based on merit, and from particularism to universalism. Modernization theory, popular in 1950s and 1960s, holds that all societies progress through similar steps or stages of development. Proponents of this theory hold that sometime in the past, today's developed areas were in a situation that is similar to that faced by today's underdeveloped areas. According to W. Rostow, gave this theory in 1960, there are 5 steps in evolutionary ladder of modernization. The first step can be seen as traditional society characterized by poverty, primary production and traditional values. The second step can be seen as preconditions for takeoff stage, wherein the West assists development through aid and industrial development. The third step is the takeoff stage, wherein high economic growth and investment begins. The fourth step is the drive to maturity, where economic and cultural factors lead to increase in prosperity for all. The fifth stage is one of high mass consumption. Some have argued that modernization would help break ascriptive roles in productive sphere and benefit women more than men. Dear friends, let us now summarize this lesson. Social development, as we have discussed, is the pillar of any community irrespective of space and time. There have been multiple perspectives with regard to social development which will keep evolving owing to the dynamic character of society and the process of development.